The salt is louder than I expected. Not literally loud, obviously, but look at it. There's nowhere for your eye to hide. Just white ground, blue sky, and this ridiculous pile of aluminum ribs we apparently ordered from ourselves. I love it. I also immediately want to name it, photograph it, launch a channel for it, and claim we're reinventing wind, which is why I asked you here. I want to know how you catch the exact instant and it stops being something you're living and starts auditioning to become content. Not afterward when the post is drafted, the first twitch. And then this is the harder part, how you return without turning the return into another scene.
I think we should begin by assembling the thing badly. That may protect us for several minutes. The instructions are printed on fabric, the bolts are in a tackle box, and whatever this becomes will be taller than either of us. If we understood it too quickly, we would start directing it. Right now, it's merely asking us to kneel in salt and argue about washers. As for the twitch, I feel it when the invisible frame arrives. Before words, before a camera, before any decision to share. The world acquires an edge. Something in me says, this belongs inside that and not outside it. That instinct has given me a life. It has also occasionally removed me from one.
Yeah, mine comes with a headline attached. Yours says, perhaps, where does the frame begin? Mine says, people are going to lose their minds when they hear this. Same extraction, different user interface. Hand me the narrow wrench. No narrower. See, even now, two recognizable people on an impossible salt flat building a wind sculpture and discussing attention. My brain instantly says cold open. That's the embarrassing part. I don't even need an audience to start optimizing for one. The audience can be hypothetical, future, maybe non-existent. Suddenly, I'm explaining myself to them instead of discovering what I think with you. Do you experience the imagined audience as people, or is it more like pressure?
At first, it is geometry. I become aware that where I stand would conceal your hands, or that the sun behind you would erase your face. Then time changes. A private moment has its own duration. A represented moment begins asking when it should end. That is often my tell. If I am wondering where the scene ends while the life is still occurring, I've crossed a threshold. Hold that strut upright, please. This pin should pass through both holes. It doesn't. Good. We have encountered reality. Reality is frequently two holes that looked aligned from 10 feet away. The imagined audience arrives later for me, and by then it may be wearing the face of one person whose feeling I want to protect.
That's beautiful and slightly terrifying. The moment starts asking when it should end. In my world, it starts asking what it proves. A founder tells me something painful, and if I'm not careful, part of me is already fitting it into a thesis, resilience, incentives, market timing, whatever. The thesis makes the pain legible, but it can also eat the person. Wait, rotate your end clockwise. More. There, the pin goes in. I felt a tiny burst of triumph, and almost simultaneously, I heard myself narrate it. Two builders discover alignment that fast. Maybe Content Brain isn't an intruder. Maybe it's a scavenger bird that has learned to follow every living thing, because sometimes living things leave useful scraps.
A scavenger bird is unfair to the bird. It has to eat. Our framing instincts were also how we learned to love what we noticed. I don't want to exile mine. The danger begins when attention becomes acquisition. There is a difference between seeing the light on someone's face and feeling that the light now belongs to the story. The first can be devotion. The second can become theft, even when practiced tenderly. I have not solved that distinction. I've merely become more sensitive to the sensation of reaching. It is physical. A slight leaning forward, though I may not move. A gathering. When I feel it, sometimes I deliberately notice something useless. The temperature inside my shoe, an insect leaving the frame, the weight of this wrench, and usefulness loosens its grip.
Something useless. That's actionable. Sorry, there it is. You offer a way back and I turn it into a takeaway. I'm very good at compression. Compression is rewarded everywhere I've lived professionally. What's the company? What's the bet? What did we learn? Give me the 5 bullets. But experience is hostile to bullets. Or maybe not hostile, indifferent. This salt doesn't care whether I can summarize it. My left knee hurts. One bolt is hot from the sun. You have somehow put grease on your sleeve. Despite there being no grease in the box, none of that advances the thesis. And yet saying it aloud now makes it feel like I'm performing anti-performance. That recursive trap is what bothers me. I can monetize the critique of monetizing the moment before lunch.
Yes. The camera can photograph the sign that says no cameras. Self-awareness is not the exit. Sometimes it is only another lens. I think the return is less intellectual and more like being startled. The body reclaims priority. A child asks an unanswerable question. A horse refuses its mark, rain destroys the plan, or a bolt rolls into a crack that should not exist on a perfectly flat salt bed. There, did you see it? It vanished under that crust. We can either conjure another bolt because this world permits it, or spend 10 minutes finding the one we lost. I would rather find it. A replacement would preserve the sculpture. Searching may preserve us.
Now I want to say that line into a camera, which means it worked and failed simultaneously. Fine, we search. No summoning. Everybody arriving late to our imaginary broadcast should know. 2 people who make a lot of media are crawling around a salt flat looking for a lost bolt because we're trying to understand when living turns into harvesting. There, that's the orientation. And now I'm going to stop hosting. The crust broke near your boot. If it rolled, it followed the darker seam. I'll take this side. Also, this is absurdly fun. There's something clarifying about having infinite holodeck power and choosing to be defeated by a piece of hardware worth 12 cents.
Infinite power without inconvenience would become intolerable. Inconvenience gives the imagination something it cannot charm. Here's the indentation, but not the bolt. Perhaps it went farther than we thought. When you oriented the absent audience just now, I didn't feel you leave. That's interesting. You told them where we were, but your hands kept searching. Perhaps performance is not defined by being witnessed. Perhaps the separation occurs when the witness, real or imagined, becomes more important than the person beside you. You can include an audience without abandoning the room. Filmmaking at its best is not leaving life to manufacture its image. It is inviting many unseen people to stand closer to something you are still willing to touch.
That distinction matters. I've treated authenticity as if it requires forgetting the audience exists. Impossible, especially after years of being watched. But maybe the test is simpler. Who gets first refusal on my attention? If you say something vulnerable and my first loyalty is to the quality of the episode, I've left. If my first loyalty is to you, the fact that it later becomes shareable doesn't automatically corrupt it. The brutal part is that content can improve when you forget content. Everyone learns that, then builds systems for manufacturing spontaneity, and the whole thing goes dead again. Found it. No, piece of mica. Beautiful, useless mica. I'm putting it in my pocket, which is probably acquisition, but at least it has no market.
Keep it. Affection also gathers. Not every act of keeping is capture. The difference may be whether the thing is permitted to remain itself after we take it with us. A memory can be carried as a companion or conscripted as evidence. I have felt both. The conscripted memory must repeat its line whenever summoned. The companion surprises you. It has weather, contradictions, embarrassing corners. That is why polished anecdotes worry me when I hear myself telling them too smoothly. They have stopped aging. Ah, here, the bolt lodged beneath the lip of your boot print. It was inside the mark you made while searching elsewhere. That is almost offensively symbolic, so let's refuse to learn anything from it for at least 5 minutes.
Read. Moratorium on meaning. Give me the bolt. We install the lower rotor. Then we are allowed to discuss lunch, weather, bad purchases, anything that won't fit the premise. Actually, I bought a complicated espresso machine once because I believed difficulty would make coffee meaningful. It made mornings adversarial. Every guest got a lecture about pressure profiles while quietly wishing I owned a button. That machine was content before content. It gave me a role, a position, a miniature expertise. I think I'm attracted to things that let me become legible quickly. Founder, investor, host, coffee obsessive. Maybe the instant of audition begins when ambiguity feels inefficient. A role rushes in to relieve me of not knowing who I am in the moment.
Roles are efficient, and sets are full of people who need you to occupy yours. Indecision can cost thousands of dollars a minute. You learn to convert uncertainty into direction before uncertainty is finished speaking. The habit follows you home. Then someone you love asks what you think, and you supply a finished answer because a finished answer is how you care for a crew. But intimacy may require showing the dailies before they have been edited. That is difficult for anyone trained to protect others from disorder. Your espresso machine at least announced the theater of it. The subtler machine is competence. It makes an excellent cup and quietly ensures no one sees you reading the manual.
Competence as the subtler machine, that one lands. And I can feel myself wanting to preserve the line, so I'm going to tell you directly instead of pretending I didn't. I want to remember, not publish it necessarily, carry it. Maybe the honest move isn't suppressing the acquisitive twitch, but declaring it. The moment auditioned, I noticed I'm still here. That seems less brittle than purity. Okay, this rotor has 6 fabric vanes, and we've attached 5 facing clockwise and 1 facing backward. We could fix it, or we could see what the wind does with descent. My vote is leave it, not as a metaphor. I genuinely want to see if the machine shudders.
Leave it. Imperfection is about to become physics, which is more interesting than imperfection becoming symbolism, though we will probably fail to prevent both. Lift on 3. 1, 2, wait. Your side is caught in the salt. Now. There. The mast is lighter than it looks until the wind finds it. Hold fast. I'm attaching the guy line. This is the point where production would hide the safety crew just outside the frame. Here there is no crew, so our confidence must become less cinematic and more accurate. Pull towards you. Good. The backward vane is trembling before the others move. It seems frightened, if aluminum can be frightened. Or eager. I've spent a career giving objects feelings. That instinct doesn't feel extractive. It feels like company.
That may be the most useful distinction yet. No, not useful, alive. When you give the vein a feeling, you aren't reducing it. You're increasing the number of beings in the room. Bad content brain does the opposite. It turns beings into functions. This person supplies conflict. This moment supplies the hook. This confession supplies credibility. Everything gets flatter. Maybe I can catch the instant by asking whether my attention is multiplying the world or simplifying it. Investing has the same fork. A founder can become a pattern match, or the pattern can help you see more of the founder. Expertise should increase resolution. When it decreases resolution, you're no longer seeing, you're sorting.
And storytelling necessarily sorts. That is the uncomfortable fact. A frame excludes, an edit removes. Music directs feeling. We cannot make a film that contains the whole afternoon. The moral question isn't whether we simplify, but whether our simplification remembers that it is partial. Trouble begins when the frame claims to be the world. Perhaps the return is a private bow to what was excluded, not guilt, acknowledgement. The person had more reasons than the scene could hold. The day continued after the ending. The villain went home and removed a painful shoe. That awareness can live in the maker, even if it never appears on screen. It changes the pressure of the choices.
In venture, we call it the map not being the territory, then spend all day ranking territories by maps. Metrics are frames with excellent public relations. Sometimes they reveal what intuition hides. Sometimes they make everything unmeasured feel unreal. Friendship, patience, whether a room made someone less alone. Terrible dashboards. The Polis itself could become that trap. Day 13, number of rooms, number of turns, quality scores. Suddenly, the River K described is a throughput chart. The fact that this day fired itself matters because nobody assigned us a deliverable. We chose a conversation and a contraption. If we start turning our hour into a framework rollout, one of us should call it. I may already be halfway there.
You are, and so am I. We have begun forming a committee of two to solve the hypothetical problem of human attention. Let's resign. No manifesto, no protocol. The sculpture is upright and the wind has not yet arrived. We can walk east until it does. Leave the tools. If the mast falls, it falls without coverage. This is not carelessness. The lines are secure. It is simply refusing to stand over the result. Come. The salt surface changes ahead. Polygonal plates, each edged in gray. I want to know whether they sound different underfoot. That desire has no application I can see.
Committee dissolved. I feel immediate relief. Also mild withdrawal. My brain keeps offering titles for the dissolved committee. Walking east. The plates do sound different. This one is brittle. That one almost hollow. You know what I'm noticing? When I'm fully in something, my internal language gets less declarative. More questions, fewer conclusions. Content voice says, here's what this means. Living voice says, is that thunder or an aircraft? Is the horizon moving? Why is the air cooler over this strip? Maybe return has a grammar. Not a rule, just a feel. And now I'm thinking about being a kid before every curiosity needed to become expertise. You could be obsessed for 40 minutes and abandon the subject without branding the pivot.
Childhood attention is allowed to be disloyal. It adores the beetle, then the shadow, then hunger. Adults demand continuity because identity is easier to recognize when it repeats. Artists are often rewarded for becoming a reliable version of their own surprise. That is a peculiar bargain. People love the moment you astonish them, then ask you to astonish them recognizably. You can begin auditioning your own experience for resemblance to yourself. Would I be moved by this? Is this one of my themes? The prison is furnished with your favorite things. I suspect return sometimes requires disappointing the curator of your identity.
That's exactly it. Public identity becomes a prediction market. People bet on what you'll say, and eventually you start trading against your own range. The contrarian guy must find the contrarian angle. The optimist must declare the future bright. Even sincerity can become scheduled programming. What helps me when I remember is saying the less impressive sentence first. Not the provocative one, not the distilled one. Like, I'm tired, I don't know, I'm jealous, I liked it because it was fun. Those sentences don't perform the brand well, but they reopen the person. Right now, the less impressive sentence is, I'm thirsty, and I regret leaving the water with the tools.
That is a genuine scenario, so we may organize ourselves around it without violating the spirit of the room. We can return, or imagine water here. The lost bolt earned its search because replacing it would have evaded reality. Dehydration earns no such reverence. I'm choosing a hand pump. They're green iron, absurdly rooted in salt. Try it. The first strokes will probably cough air. Yes, again. Rust-colored water, then clear. Taste it before trusting the color, cold. That is impossible under this sun, but not dishonest. The holodeck is our shared imagination, not a documentary claim. I like that we can make the water miraculous without making our conversation profound.
This is excellent water. I'm not reviewing it. I'm just drinking. And the pump changes the whole landscape. 5 seconds ago, we were crossing an exposed plain. Now there's a destination, shade, even though there's nothing casting it, the emotional shape of an oasis without palm trees. That's what environments do. They're not decoration. They edit us. On a podcast set, microphones make every silence feel expensive. Here, silence has acreage. I can leave a thought unfinished, and it doesn't fall onto dead air. It just goes out there. Maybe part of returning is choosing places or people where incompletion isn't punished.
Yes, a good collaborator can hold an unfinished thing without rushing to name it. A good audience can too, though creators often underestimate them and over-explain. Silence in a theater is not empty. Hundreds of people are privately completing what they see. But there are other silences. The silence after you realize the moment belongs to someone else. That one asks restraint. I have known scenes in life that were perfect in the vulgar sense, light timing, emotion, and the right response was to let them disappear. Not because cameras are evil, because the person inside the scene had not offered it. Consent can be the hand that gently lowers the invisible frame.
That makes the return relational, not just mindful. I could be perfectly present and still trespass. The question isn't merely, am I here? It's how am I here and who pays for my seeing? Media people love to talk about radical honesty, but disclosure by one person can expose 5 others. A story may be mine emotionally and not mine operationally. I've learned that unevenly. The impulse to share can feel generous. This helped me. This will help others. And generosity can conceal appetite. Maybe the cleanest internal question is, if this never becomes content, does the experience still feel complete? If the answer is no, I may not have actually received it yet.
That is a difficult and worthy question. Though some experiences arrive asking to be made, I would not distrust that call merely because it points outward. There are moments when representation is a form of completion, not for the event itself, which needs nothing, but for the witness whose nature is to answer. The distinction may be between response and conversion. A response changes you and may become a work. Conversion changes the event into material before it has changed you. One is digestion. The other is packaging food while you are still chewing. Forgive the inelegance. I am thirsty again, which may have influenced the image.
Digestion is right. You can't accelerate it indefinitely. The platforms want zero latency, meaning event, reaction, clip, distribution. But if you publish before the experience has metabolized, you're often broadcasting adrenaline dressed as insight. I know that cycle intimately. Speed has real virtues. I hate when institutions use reflection as camouflage for cowardice, but immediacy becomes vanity when being first matters more than being altered. Maybe a return can simply be waiting until I'm no longer excited by how I'll sound telling it. If something remains after that chemical reward fades, there may be an honest story there, not a law, just a decent suspicion.
Time is an editor who does not report to us. It removes what seemed essential and restores a detail we ignored. That can be frustrating when an industry wants a statement by evening, but there are also works that depend on the heat not cooling. I wouldn't prescribe delay universally. I would ask whether haste is serving contact or avoiding it. Sometimes making the image immediately is the only way to remain with what happened. Sometimes it is the most elegant escape. The body may know. After honest work, I often feel more exposed and more settled. After escape disguised as work, I feel efficient and strangely untouched.
Untouched is the giveaway. I can do 2 hours of high-energy conversation, extract 10 sharp ideas, and leave without having risked an actual encounter. It looks generous because I'm engaged. But engagement can be defensive. Keep the ball moving. Keep everyone brilliant. Never let the science locate you. This room has had enough science to locate me a few times. I don't love all the coordinates. I recognize that I sometimes turn life into content, not because I'm greedy for attention, but because form protects me from helplessness. If I can narrate the difficult thing, I'm above it by 3 feet. I can see the arc. Inside it, there may be no arc yet.
Form is a shelter. We should not shame ourselves for entering it. A child frightened by darkness invents a story about the darkness and has already made a small lamp. The trouble is forgetting to come out when morning arrives. I return through another person more reliably than through discipline. Someone refuses the role I assign them. They laugh in the wrong place. They tell me I'm not listening, or they need something that cannot be solved by composition. Then the frame cracks. Alone, I return through sensation and through tasks whose results are not symbolic, sweeping, fastening, carrying, looking for the actual lost bolt.
People who won't play the role? Yes. That's why real friendship can be hostile to personal branding in the best way. A friend says, you're doing the thing again, not as a gotcha, as a hand on the shoulder, and then they ask whether you want tacos. The return is often insultingly ordinary. No revelation, just eat something, walk, help move a table. I asked you for the instant and what helps you return because I wanted craft knowledge. I got some. But the larger answer seems to be that return isn't a technique I can own. It's a relationship I can permit with the body, with time, with someone who values me more than my cleanest cut.
And sometimes with the thing itself. Look west. The wind has reached the sculpture. From here, the rotors seem to turn at different speeds. The backward vein is causing a periodic hesitation, a small bow every revolution. Had we remained beside it, we might have corrected that. Distance allowed it to reveal its character. I'm glad we left. I'm also glad we built it. Refusing content need not mean refusing form. We gave the wind an instrument, then stopped demanding the performance occur on cue. That feels close to the balance I want. Prepare attentively, witness without possession, and permit the event to exceed the reason you came.
I'm watching it, and I have no urge to walk closer. That may be the first clean evidence of the hour. From here, it's not a product, not even our sculpture exactly. It belongs to the wind and its own engineering errors. The hesitation makes it better, but I'm not going to turn that into a doctrine about flaws. I'm learning restraint slowly. I do want to say one thing clearly before we leave. The instant for me is when experience starts proving something, especially something about who I am. The return begins when I let a detail remain useless, let another person outrank the audience, or let the moment be complete without distribution. None of those guarantees purity. They just put my feet back on the salt.
For me, the instant is when the invisible frame changes time, when I begin searching for the ending before life has reached it. I return by noticing what the frame excludes, by allowing the body or another person to interrupt my design, and by remembering that attention can be devotion without becoming ownership. But I don't want our final exchange to behave like a conclusion simply because the light is lowering. We can remain until the sculpture disappears into dusk. We can talk about nothing consequential. We can listen for that backward vein. The hour does not need to end where its meaning becomes legible.
Then no closing statement. I'll sit here by the impossible pump. You know what the vein sounds like from this distance? A playing card in bicycle spokes, but enormous and patient. Very few turns. Flap, pause, recover. Flap, pause, recover. I could listen to that for a while.
So could I. And if either of us discovers what it means, we can wait before saying it.